When we take the time to gain awareness around our reactions, we can learn more about ourselves. It isn't always easy work, but it is important work if we want to create a life and have relationships that we love. In this week's episode, I share a story about a woman at a restaurant who was behaving badly. But the real story, it's about what her behavior revealed in me. Join me as we explore what happens when we get curious about our reactions instead of just critical of others. Welcome to the Seasons of Joy podcast. I'm Jill Pack, and this is episode 176 entitled The Beam in My Eye. Recently, something happened while I was on vacation with my husband and some of our friends. We were at this lovely farm-to-table restaurant in Mexico, and we were sitting together enjoying our meal. The restaurant had this open layout, so I could see most of the dining room from where we sat. And that's when I noticed her. There was a woman sitting facing my direction at a table kitty corner from us with what appeared to be her husband. And I began to notice the way she was interacting with their server. At one point, she waved her salad away as the server removed it from the table. She was definitely irritated. You could see it in her body language, in the way she dismissed him with her hand. Then, when the server stopped by again, she sent her glass away with him, pointing down at the drink menu and complaining about how he hadn't brought her the correct Chardonnay. She continued complaining to her husband loud enough that I could hear snippets of her frustration. At one point, she said, "I'm not being unreasonable," and then continued on with her complaints. Over the next little while, two other individuals came to the table. I believe one was a manager, and I heard him say, "Thank you so much for your feedback." And in my mind, I was thinking, are you crazy? She is being so rude. Finally, the server came back with a new glass of wine. She looked at him and she said, "We're leaving." And she brushed him off. He nodded his head and he walked away. Then she sat there and she proceeded to drink half of the wine before she and her husband got up and walked out of the restaurant. As I watched this whole scene play out, I could feel myself getting more and more bothered. Her mannerisms, her complete disregard for the other humans who were serving her, the way she treated them like they were less than. I felt so bad for the server, and when he came to our table, I tried to treat him with extra respect and kindness. I wanted to show him that not all customers were like her, that he mattered. Over the next couple of days, I found myself bringing up this story, talking about what I had witnessed. The woman at the restaurant became a topic of our conversation and a story we would circle back to. There is a lot to learn from this story, but first, I want to focus on my reaction. Because here's what I was doing as I sat there watching her. I found myself being critical of her. I was judging her by what appeared to me to be expensive clothing, assuming that she must be wealthy and expected to be treated in some preferential way. I was criticizing her to the people I was with, pointing out her terrible behaviors, making her the villain of my vacation story. And honestly, it didn't hit me until I started writing this podcast episode about seeing people as people. The irony is not lost on me. It hit me. I wasn't actually seeing her as a person either. I had made her into a character, the difficult woman at the restaurant, the unreasonable customer, the rude lady in expensive clothes. But she is a real person with a real life, and a real story that I know absolutely nothing about. Maybe she had just received devastating news. Maybe she was in physical pain. Maybe she was struggling with something I couldn't see. Maybe she was having the worst day of her life. Or maybe none of that was true. Maybe she was just having a bad moment, a moment where she wasn't showing up as her best. And the truth is, I will never know. But what I do know is this. In my judgment of her, I became just as unkind. For so many of us, it's so easy to call out bad behavior. But it's a little more difficult to see it in our own behavior. In the scriptures, we're taught about removing the beam out of our own eye before we can focus on the mote in someone else's. And friends, I had a whole beam situation happening. So I want to share with you 3 lessons that we can take away from this experience. Lesson number 1, everyone is fighting a battle we know nothing about. That is the truth, isn't it? Every single person we encounter is carrying something. They're dealing with something, they're navigating something, and most of the time we have no idea what that something is. When we can remember this, it changes how we see people. It softens us. It creates space for compassion. I love what Dieter F. Uchtdorf has said. Don't judge me because I sin differently than you. Isn't that the truth? We are all just messy people doing our best. And sometimes our best looks really messy. That woman at the restaurant, she's a messy person doing her best. And so am I, and so are you. Lesson number 2, judgment separates us from love. When I was sitting there judging her, I wasn't experiencing love. I wasn't experiencing peace. I was experiencing irritation and self-righteousness and criticism. And that's what judgment does. It separates us from the very things we actually want to feel. The Savior taught us to love one another, not to love one another when they're behaving well, not to love one another when they're easy to love, just to love one another. And here's what I have been learning. When I choose to see people, as children of God who are doing their best, even when their best is messy, I create space for love, for grace, for compassion, not just for them, but for me too. Because if I can extend that grace to her, I can extend it to myself. If I can see her as a person worthy of love despite her behavior, I can see myself that way too. Lesson number 3, our reactions reveal our own work to do. This is a big one for me. My reaction to her behavior revealed something about me. It revealed where I still have work to do, where I'm still learning and growing. My irritation with her showed me places where I'm still holding on to beliefs about how people should behave, about how things should be, about who deserves kindness and who doesn't. And that's not how the Savior loves. He doesn't love conditionally. He doesn't withhold grace until we've earned it. He just loves. So when I notice myself reacting strongly to someone else's behavior, I'm learning to get curious about my reaction. What is this showing me about myself? What belief am I holding on to that's causing me to feel this way? What do I need to learn here? Now, this doesn't mean we excuse bad behavior. It doesn't mean we don't have boundaries, but it does mean we can hold people accountable while still seeing them as people worthy of love and dignity. Friends, we are all just messy people doing our best, every single one of us. That woman at the restaurant is a messy person doing her best. The server who was treated unkindly is a messy person doing his best. The manager who responded with grace is a messy person doing his best. And I'm a messy person doing my best, and you're a messy person doing your best. When we can extend that grace to one another, that's when we create space for real connection, real love, real joy. Now, here's where it gets hard, though, because it's one thing to extend grace to a stranger at a restaurant. It's quite another to extend it to people who are closest to us, our spouse, our children, our parents, our siblings, our friends. The people we love the most are often the people we judge the most harshly. Why is that? I think it's because we have expectations. We have ideas about how they should show up, how they should behave, what they should say or not say. And when they don't meet those expectations, we react. Maybe your husband leaves his socks on the floor again, and you find yourself feeling irritated and thinking, why can't he just put them in the hamper? It's not that hard. Or our adult children makes a choice you don't agree with, and you find yourself feeling disappointed, maybe even hurt, thinking after everything we've taught them, how could they choose this? Or your sister makes a comment at dinner that feels critical, and you find yourself pulling away thinking, she just doesn't understand me. She never has. But what if your reaction in those moments is giving you information? What if it's showing you something about you, not just about them? When I get irritated with my husband, what belief am I holding that's creating that irritation? Maybe I'm believing that he should know what bothers me without me telling him. or that his actions mean something about how much he respects me. When I feel disappointed in my child's choices, what am I making it mean? Maybe I'm believing their choices reflect on me as a parent, or that they should value what I value. When I pull away from my sister, what's really happening? Maybe I'm believing I need her approval to feel worthy, or that she should have changed by now. These are my beliefs, my expectations, my work to do. And when I can see that, when I can own that, things change. Because suddenly I see my husband as a person, a messy person doing his best, not as someone who's trying to make my life harder. I can see my child as a person on their own journey, a messy person doing their best, not as a reflection of my parenting. I can see my sister as a person carrying her own story, a messy person doing her best, not as someone who owes me something different. This doesn't mean we don't have conversations. It doesn't mean we don't have boundaries, but it does mean we have those conversations and set those boundaries from a place of love instead of judgment. We can say, hey, it would really help me if you'd put your socks in the hamper, without making it mean he doesn't care. We can love our children fiercely when they make choices we wouldn't make for them, without making it mean something about us. We can have honest conversations with our siblings about what we need, without making them wrong for being who they are. When we can see the people we love as messy people doing their best, we create space for real connection, for grace, for love that isn't conditional on behavior. My invitation for you this week is this. When you encounter someone who is difficult, someone who is behaving in a way that bothers you, whether that's a stranger or a spouse, pause. Get curious and ask yourself, what might this person be carrying that I know nothing about? How can I see them as a person worthy of love even in this moment? And especially when you notice yourself reacting strongly to someone you love, ask, what is this revealing about me? What belief am I holding on to? What expectation do I have that's creating this reaction? What do I need to learn here? We're all on this journey together, my friends. All of us are messy people doing our best. Thank you so much for listening. If this resonates with you, share it with a friend. If you want to learn more or connect with me, head to seasons-coaching.com and have a joyful week.